I'm referring to the mini album cardstock cutting guide as I make the components to the mini album. So I have here one of the pockets, and I've cut it 7/3 by 11 1/2, and now we need to do some scoring. I'm going to start scoring with my 7 3/8 inches on top, and I'm going to score at 1/2, and then 6 3/4, and 6 7/8. And all of these dimensions are in the cutting guide. And then I'll flip around to have the 11 1/2 on the top and score at 3, 3 1/8, 8 1/2, and 8 5/8. And then we need to do some cutting. And here you can see I've done the cutting. I've cut out from the top these two sections, and the top is the piece that only has the 1/2 inch score. The bottom has a 1/2 inch and then the 1/8 inch score to make the depth of the pocket. And so I have folded on all those score lines. I've also added some score tape, as you can see, on the top tab on one of the sides, and then flipped over on the bottom. And so then this piece just comes together by first folding in this top portion. That's just to give a nice finished edge on that side. And then we'll remove the backing here. And remember, you're making an 1/8 inch deep pocket, so make sure you've got things lined up. And then another thing, since I've got my scoring board out here, I can use that to kind of help me here. The pockets are 5 3/8 inch wide, so if I kind of press up against my scoreboard here, I can complete the attaching of these sides, give everything a burnish, and now I have one of the pockets made, and we'll make 5 pockets like that. Now, as you can see, I have a different color cardstock here. I've chosen to make my pockets out of one color of cardstock and all of my interactive pieces out of a different color of cardstock. So this is piece A, and it's cut 7 1/2 by 6 3/4. And I'm starting with the 7 1/2 on top and scoring it at 1/2 inch, 3 5/8, 6 7/8, and 7 inches. And then I'll flip it around so the 6 3/4 is at the top, and I'll score it 1/2. And then in the cutting directions it says to score at 5, but only to the score, and that means to this score that's in the middle here. So we'll come over here, and that's just to give us a cutting guide. So that's our scoring. And now we need to do a little cutting. We're going to cut out that little rectangle up here at the top, and we've cut off our tabs. And when we make these, we want to make one in one direction and one in the reverse. And even though it's easier to fold the scores when they're scored in the direction that you want to fold, I find it easier just to reverse fold for the opposite one instead of trying to figure out the math, so that if you're making this one and all the folds are coming in this direction, when you make the second one, just simply fold all of the tabs in the other direction, and you'll end up with the reverse. And so for this one, we're making the pocket to begin with. The pocket's just been cut slightly smaller than the width of this fold out. You'll see, hopefully, as I bring this over, we'll line up the bottom edge. Give that a burnish. And then this tab we'll just leave for right now. That's for joining on to our base page, which is the pockets. Now again, you'll make one facing this way and the other one will be facing the opposite direction. So once you've got one made, you can just do everything the opposite for the other one. B has two components, B1 and B2. B1 is cut 2 5/8 by 11 1/2, and B2 is cut 2 1/2 by 3. So let's look at B1 first. With the 2 5/8 on top, we have one score at 5/8. Then we'll flip it around and we'll do a score at 1/2. 2 5/8, 8 7/8, and 11. And then we'll do some cutting. We want to cut here, here, just on that line. And you can cut across the diagonal to miter down here and here, but the most important lines to do right now are these two. I've got one that I've already done that. So you can see I've got those two lines. Let me put it this way, the two lines here. I've also done those miters on those corners. These tabs I've trimmed off to 1/2 inch. You can see they're a little bit shorter than this piece right here. And that's because we've allowed enough space to have a 1/8 inch gusset here. And so to make that 1/8 inch gusset, now that we've made these relief cuts, I'm again lining up my piece with the 2 5/8 at the top. And I'm just going to find my 1/2 inch score. Just pull this tab out of the way and you can easily see it, and then come down on that. And now we can fold on both of those score lines. And sometimes with these really long ones it's helpful to put them up against a sharp edge of your desk. I have some pretty heavyweight cardstock here, so it's pretty cooperative. And then all of the score tape for this one goes on the same side. So I'm just going to put a piece down here in the 1/2 inch zone. And then I'm going to just kind of trim back that corner a little bit, just up to the 1/8 inch. The 1/8 inch should stay square. And now we can fold our little pockets here. ahead and attach these small pockets down. And to fill in this little gap with another pocket, that's what we have piece B2 for. So we'll put our 3" at the top and we'll score it at 1/2 and 2.5. And then we'll flip it with our 2.5" at the top and we'll score it at 1/2. And I already have one prepped here. You can see I've mitered my corners, and I've also cut back just a little bit on these corners. And this little pocket should fit right inside the other two. Make sure you get the opening facing the edge where all the other openings are facing. Give that a burnish. And now we have a nice little add-on that has 3 little pockets. So that's piece B. Piece C, we're making 4 of these. They're cut 4 1/8 by 5 1/8. Very simple scoring, just 1/2 inch and 5/8 of an inch. And then we'll fold on those score lines. I've cut in a little bit on the corners, not in the 1/8 inches square, and then just added a piece of score tape on the back. So that's piece C. Oh, I've also used a 1/4 inch quarter rounder. I used this corner chopper, but you could use whatever you want or leave the corner square. For piece D, we want to make 2. One will be the reverse. They're cut 3 3/4 by 4 3/4, and with the 3 3/4 on top, you'll score a 1/2 inch. And I've already done one here. And you can see that these are the 2 sides that I've done. So I want to do the reverse here. So I'm going to make sure that I make the reverse. Just miter this corner. And then I'll add score tape. The score tape goes on these sides, and that will be piece D. Piece E, we're making 6 of them. They're cut 3 1/4 by 4 3/4, and simple scoring on this, just a 1/2 inch at the top. Fold that back. And then your score tape goes on the underneath side. And again, I've rounded the corners on piece E. Piece F is very similar to piece E. We're making 2 of these. It's just cut a little bit longer than piece E, 3 1/4 by 4 7/8, And then extra 1/8 of an inch is to allow for a little 1/8 inch gusset on this piece. So we're scoring at 1/2 an inch and then at 5/8 of an inch. And we'll fold on both of those score lines and again put score tape on the inside. And I've rounded the corners on piece F as well. In piece G, we're making 2 of these. They're cut 3 5/8 by 6 3/8, and then with the 6 3/8 on top, we're scoring at 1/2, 5/8, 5 3/4, and 5 7/8. And then we'll turn it around and score it at 3 and 3 1/8. We're just making a pocket here with an 1/8 inch gusset. So I've scored on all of the score lines here and then mitered corners, and you can see the score tape placement for that. So that's piece G. I'm making the hinges out of the same color cardstock as I made my pockets, and to start out with I want to score, they're cut 2 1/2 by 6 1/4, and to start off I'm going to score at 1 inch and 1 1/2 inch. And this is just because I'm going to reinforce the center with a piece of Tyvek. Now, if you don't want to reinforce the center, you can just score it at 1 inch, 1 1/4, and 1 1/2 and be done. But I've cut a piece of Tyvek that is 1/2 an inch by 6 1/4, and I backed it with some score tape. I've also kind of darkened the edges just a little bit, 2 ends, just so it blends in a little bit more with my cardstock. And then I'm going to center that right between those 2 score lines that I just made. And now that I have that on, I'm just going to reinforce the 1 inch and the 1 1/2, and then come down the center at 1 1/4. Now these get folded on all of those score lines. So that we have a piece that in profile looks like that. And now I want to fill in these sides with score tape. I have 1 inch tape, this is 1 inch wide, or you could use 2 strips of 1/2 inch, just something to fill in that tape. So that now I have something that looks like this. Score tape, here's my Tyvek, and another piece of score tape. So we need to make 6 hinges like that. For the 5 tags, we'll again refer to our template. Now, the only difference between the tags and the cover is that they are 1/2 an inch narrower. We're taking off 1/4 of an inch on either side. So instead of having this little jog out here on the left and the right, they just continue straight down. I think you can see that here in the tag that I have made. So I cut out my blue cardstock the size of my template, and then as it says on the template, if you want to have a reveal for your pattern paper, just cut it a 1/16 of an inch shorter all the way around. Now if you want to conserve on tall paper, you could put something on the top and then use 6-inch paper on the bottom and scraps of something on the top instead of having to use so much of 12 by 12. Now I have put pattern paper on both the back and the front, and that's all I'm going to do. It allows room for larger photos. So 5 of those for the project.